Hello, everybody, and welcome to the review for Sherlock Holmes, The Devil's Daughter. A few things before we begin. So, if you are new to my review videos, which I know I haven't done one in a while because we're still working on the other endings for Fallout 4, we're working through slowly the Mass Effect trilogy series, which is also known as the Shepherd series. And we're also adding now like Resident Evil, which is a lot. But basically, I do these reviews just to give like my own personal opinion on games that I have done walkthroughs for or have played and give kind of an honest review about them. Even if I really love them, um, I have to be brutally honest. So this is like brutally honest, trying to be subjective with this because I do genuinely enjoy this game. However, there are some major flaws that just the game didn't really sell me. I haven't really played the other ones, so I don't know what the other ones are like. But if this was like a sequel to, because I did my research and it is a sequel to another game I have yet to play. Um, it's just kind of a matter of trying to see what the other games are like. So this is based on just this game alone with no experience with Frogware Games, which is the developers for Sherlock Holmes, The Devil's Daughter. So the way I evaluate, because I don't really like the word review very much, the way I evaluate the games is actually based on categories that game testers always do whenever they're reviewing a game. So I do it based off of the story, the graphics, the music, characters, control, and gameplay. So those are going to be what we're talking about in this review. If you have yet to play the game, however, uh, just as a little side note, there are spoilers. So if you've not played the game or if you've not watched the walkthrough, I would wholeheartedly recommend doing so because I will be going heavy details with these games usually, and it will involve spoiler alerts. So you have been warned if you do not stop at this point in the video to play the game first. Um, just know you have been warned. And do not pass go and collect 200 kind of deal, you know? So, with that said, we're going to go into our first category, which is story. So, the story is happening after the events of Sherlock Holmes' Crimes and Punishment, from what I've researched. It is a prequel game to Sherlock Holmes The Devil's Daughter. I do not know all of the events that have happened in Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishments, but it is a very interesting kind of bit information that if you guys were like, oh, is this connected to any of the other games that Frogware has made? This is the research that I found. If it's true or not, I do not know, but that was information I found about this story. This story also, if you've seen the walkthrough, you know that it's not very long because it's 5 videos. So that is because there are 5 unique cases. And what most people know about Sherlock is he has an intense rivalry with Moriarty. Um, Now, Moriarty has been depicted different ways. Moriarty as a woman, um, who is a romantic interest to Sherlock. Sometimes as a male figure with the romantic interests of Sherlock working under him, or just kind of a all out rivalry between the two without any romantic interests. But yeah, there is a new main antagonist. Um, it isn't made obvious right away, but it is alluded throughout the 5 cases that Sherlock goes on during this endeavor. And they, in a way, tried to develop the story around Holmes's adoptive daughter, Caitlin, and the main antagonist, in a sense, because they're spending a lot of time together, and in a way, it feels threatening to Sherlock because he is the parental guardian of Caitlin. Um, as we learn, like they treat each other like they're actually father and daughter, but we find out over time that she is not biologically related to him, she is adopted. Um, and the other thing too that is also talked about is the struggling decision that Sherlock has because Caitlin is still a young child, and does not really remember her biological parents. Um, and it's an ongoing argument with Dr. Watson too, of telling her the truth versus keeping this illusion of like her parents were good people or something like that. We don't really know the full context behind Caitlin and Sherlock's history together. And Holmes worries that Caitlin would hate him if she knew the truth, and he just wants to be a good parent to her, despite not always doing the right thing as a parent, or saying the right thing too. So, some of the story's pros and cons, I really love the choices because with each case, it's not just a set choice, except for the last case, which we will talk about it at a later point. Um, but the choices that you can make are really cool. And of course, the cases are intriguing, and it kind of explores not just like the crimes that Holmes investigates, but kind of like his development as a detective and as a parental role model, which is kind of explored because we don't get to see Kate until I think episode, like in the middle of episode 1, I want to say, or start of 2. But either way, like, we just kind of see him like in his element. He excels at being a detective, but when it comes to being a parent, he is still struggling, and it kind of shows like some of his humane side. Like I said, those stuff will be also talked about in later points. Some of the cons. So as you could tell, because I just played the cases through, and sometimes I had to like take breaks because I would spend like the 2-hour videos for like cases 1 through 3, um actually took like a day or two to get it recorded because I kept messing up at certain points because the controls are not very easy. So sometimes like the length of the cases were kind of uneven, and it just felt um too short for some of them. I know with Chain Reaction, it was meant to be a little bit shorter to be like, hey, this isn't going to be a long case because you're going to have another case following up immediately after this one, which is the concluding case, which that one um fell a little flat in my opinion because of how short it was. And like I said, there is only one ending. Um, the main antagonist is obvious when like Sherlock has this like heightened I do not trust my new neighbor when he doesn't even know much about his new neighbor at first. I eventually we learn that she's not a very good person. Um, but it was just so obvious that it just was like I would have loved a little mystery. I would have loved to been like, it's a case that I'm developing because we run into so many people um and stuff like, what if one of them decided to trick Caitlin and stuff like that. So it just kind of was too obvious, and um in a way, it just kind of defeated the alluding trailer where obviously we see a woman with Caitlyn. She's dressed in all black, in like morning attire. And we don't have that mystery with Sherlock alluding, like, this lady, I don't like her, I have a bad feeling about her. Like, we don't have any evidence except gut feeling, which Sherlock, even though sometimes he has gut feelings, he does not have that obvious gut feeling all the time, and that just made the story a little unenjoyable. The other two things too is like, where's Watson? Like, we see him briefly, and he helps a lot in the first case, but after the first case, um, the second case we don't get to really see him. We only use like Toby like once to help with the case, and we don't really get to see him more until like the last case, because he's helping us keep an eye on Alice and help us rescue Caitlin. But he's supposed to be a supporting character in the Sherlock series, so it just didn't feel like he was like supporting Sherlock, especially in the third case with infamy, because of the actor who was not also a likable character. And so it just kind of defeated the purpose of like Watson's role as a supporting character. And lastly, the one ending. Now, I'm not against, like Caitlin, because like Caitlin is a very likable character in my opinion and stuff. But the one ending where we only save Caitlin is just very unsettling, because we got the choice to absolve or condemn the other cases of individuals that were the obvious um the basically the prime suspect, the suspect that did it. In this one, we know who the prime suspect is, but it was like we couldn't absolve her or condemn her because like there was alluding to mental health reasons of why she was doing this, because she had a very difficult childhood. She lost her aunt, she lost her mother, her father was in prison, and he perished too. So she was all alone in this world, and she wanted someone to blame for all this misfortune and misery. And just it there was a way we could have redeemed her. I know it's very unlikely, very impossible, but it just felt defeating of that absolve slash condemn choice that we were given with the other four cases. So that is another con to the story, is there's no alternative endings. There's no like choice in how this ends, except that you do get to rescue Caitlin, but Alice does not get a chance to be saved. So for that reason, well, aside from the other cons alone, I gave the story a 6 out of 10. It would have been better to have, like I said, that mystery, that eluding, not obvious uh main antagonist or anything like that. Like, and have the other characters have purpose than just a one-time appearance. So that is why it got a 6 out of 10. Next, graphics. Um, the graphics were really good in my opinion. They had gone in detail with not just the scenery of London or the characters like Sherlock and Wiggins, who we get to see a couple times, or no, 3 times throughout this game. And the loading screen, even though I condensed it because the loading screens were pretty long, the loading screen scenery was just really cool to see how detailed they went in. And like walking in London, like you don't even have to work on the cases and stuff. Like you could walk around a little bit in the London area, like around Baker Street, or where like Whitechapel is another place you could walk around in. And it was just so much fun to kind of explore London, and they provided more details. They provided a way for us to explore the world. So it is very interesting how like they went in depth with these graphics to bring Sherlock and the rest of the cast members to life. So what are some pros and cons? obviously they got that depth. Like you could see how the windows look outside and the lighting that's coming in. You can see cute little Toby laying on the ground on his little bed. Like they went all out, and it's a pretty decent quality. I'm not gonna say it's a triple A quality, but it is very decent quality, like high tier gaming quality of graphics. And like I said, the clues were very detailed, especially when Orson decides to basically ruin the secret note letter and all that. Like, just all of that was amazing alone, in my opinion. Um, and so, like, that was just a lot of the cons. How, or not cons, sorry, pros. However, the cons, oh my god, the trailer. So if you look at like if you remember the previous scene with Kate's dress and seeing her in that same dress over and over and over, it was blue, like a dark royal blue. However, this is the however, if you look at the trailer, which is completely different graphics and different look of Sherlock than in this game, they made him like really realistic in the trailer, but also they changed the color of Kate's dress. It was more of a baby blue in or white, like an off-white color in the trailer. Yet when they brought it to this game, it was a dark blue. So I have a problem with that. That like little subtle things like that just it's upsetting because they kept the appearance of Sherlock the same and what he looked like in the trailer, minus, like, you know, obviously the facial and stuff. But if you're going to make a change like that for Caitlin and all that, and her wearing a dark blue dress instead of an off-white color, um, you know, like that's just very defeating, especially if you're making it your official trailer for the game. So that was like a major con of mine. The outfit changes. Now, I love the outfit changes for Sherlock, but we don't really get any for any of the other characters. Like Caitlin is always in the same dress, Watson is always in the same suit, it seems. We don't get a variation that these people are changing except for Alice, who is wearing that morning gown after coming in with, like, you know, her usual everyday attire. Like we get to see her in an actual different outfit, but only in the last scene. And the other con is the scenery. So like I love the scenery, don't get me wrong, like they went in depth with it and stuff, but um like the leaves were not really well made in my opinion. It was just kind of more of what you would see in a painting, like in Oblivion with the Painter's Quest. um and it was kind of like really, like, it bothered me um a lot when it came to the loading scene, because if you've seen the Pray Tell, which is the first case, like that loading, like if you have to quit and then reload into the game, that loading scene, you see a lot of those leaves. So that was another con that I really, really did not like. So because of that, however, I did, like I said, the graphics were really good. Not AAA, but high quality. So with like the pros and cons in mind, I gave it an honest 8 out of 10. I very rarely would ever give a 10 out of 10 for graphics. Like the highest I would ever give probably would be a 9, just because I'm not a graphic designer or anything like that. But that's why I was like, it just fell a little short of the triple A. If they had fixed the, like, the leaves issue and some of the scenery stuff that wasn't as realistic or detailed, like the Baker Street house and stuff like that, I think it would have been a triple A, and it would have probably gotten a 9 out of 10, because I'm very hesitant to do a 10 out of 10 sometimes. unless I am like, yeah, this deserves fully a 10 out of 10. So that is why it got an 8 out of 10. Next, music. So I had a lot of issues trying to find the producer, um, or composer, or whoever was in charge of the music for Sherlock Holmes, The Devil's Daughter. It was not a clear answer. I got like 4 to 5 different people because Sherlock is a very popular character. He's had different shows. There is the British show that we have for Sherlock Holmes that's basically called Sherlock Holmes. We have the American version with Elementary. We have the Johnny Depp Sherlock Holmes. So there's like different composers for those, and it was just so hard to sift through all of that and find who actually composed for this game specifically. So that is why there is a question mark. However, I have played the game with music. It was a long time ago, but I still remember it. And I was actually re-listening to it. So there is a lot of classical, like I'm a big classical fan. You could give me classical music all day and I will be content. It might even put me to sleep, but it's something I greatly enjoy and am knowledgeable about because of the time that I've played the violin. So that was one of the pros I really liked. I'm kind of biased to like classical music and like, I love it. I'm not going to be like, no, that isn't good classical music unless I could tell with my ears as I'm listening to it and stuff. So the classical music, like it's just like usually classical music in games like this or any game in general can really make the difference, especially if you're trying not to involve vocals or an a cappella. Acapellas are really good, but like that classical element with the string instruments and stuff, it's just it's amazing to me. It always impresses me when these composers come up with different ways of using string instruments. And there was a lot of theme and specific moments that were in the game from the official soundtrack, I believe, that really hit home in like making sure that each piece of music that was used in this game had a purpose. Some of the cons. So it varies in volume, like it can change based on where you walk, where like if you're sneaking and if you're safe or not. Um just it varies in volume and sometimes it's like having to readjust the volume so that way it doesn't overwhelm you in the loudness. And the other thing too is like the intensity of some of the pieces can be very like overwhelming. I remember when I first played it, I actually had to take a break because the music was so overwhelming for myself. And this is like neurodivergent brain here speaking. Where, like just too much sensory overload can be overwhelming and overstimulating. So that was another con I found. And the emotional or story component, like they did do, like I said, specific moments and themes for like, certain scenarios and stuff. But it would have been nice to have more, I guess, just something that was like, kind of like that of like a Plague Tale in a sense, like just something bittersweet between Sherlock Holmes and his daughter, like when they reunite and they work out the issues that they're having and all that as Alice decides to stay on Madame Destiny, or when you're making certain choices, like it just felt the same at the end of each case, that, or like, at certain moments that was like kind of disappointed. So with that said, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because like I said, I'm a bit biased to classical music. Like I love it so much that I could go on and on and on. But if they would have fixed those cons with like the the emotional or story component instead of just making it a theme for when this certain thing occurs in the game. Um, or, like specific moments that they feel is important, like, for a specific character that's coming back into the room, or something like that. Like, it would have been better. Um, just a little bit of that emotion, just a little bit. Um, aside from obviously, like I said, like the intensity and the various volumes of the music, just to make sure it's not overwhelming the consumer. So that's, like I said, a 7 out of 10 for the music. Characters. So I didn't want to overwhelm this page with so many characters, so I focused on the 4 characters we kind of see throughout the game, that are important characters. Like I said, there's Sherlock Holmes. He's the main protagonist. We have the supporting um character of Dr. Watson, who writes about Sherlock Holmes's adventures and cases. We have Caitlin, who's kind of a detergentist too, because she's like a secondary support character and main character um of like the protagonist, because she is the adoptive daughter of Sherlock Holmes. um but also uh her her relationship with Alice also makes it where like she's kind of the focus of the game. um and obviously Alice is the main antagonist. We have so many characters that we don't really get to see all of them again in the following cases, or kind of resurface to kind of give us like alluding hints like, oh, is it this person that's trying to manipulate Caitlin? Is it that person? Because, it seems to center around the safety of Caitlin, obviously, and if she'll be safe. So it just seems like all these characters that they introduce for one case and have various different voice actors for, um, just seems like it doesn't leave a lot for mystery or alluding to, because they could have like made it obvious, like, oh, she's obviously, she's like, Alice is the daughter of a criminal. She's dangerous for Caitlin because Caitlin is also a daughter of the criminal Moriarty. So like, how can we keep that as like from being an obvious mystery? Like, bring some of the other characters back that hold a grudge against Sherlock for, you know, kind of like an infamy. Sherlock, put the dart away. The dart held a grudge that he tried to take an attempt at Sherlock and failed. So, like, where's the leading of, oh, maybe it could be this person? So with that said, like, there's so many specific roles for these characters that is considered a pro. And each character brings like complex backstories that we gradually learn about. Some of them for the main characters, and the others we learn like very quickly as we progress through the case. We also have character development from all those characters. However, here's some of the cons, which kind of brings up the earlier points. There is so many characters. Like, if I just put every single character on the character page, it would be as I was saying, for the cons, there's just so many characters that it's so overwhelming to kind of keep track. And the reusage of each character, like, it would have been nice, like the characters that were helping the antagonist for certain cases could have been potential suspects in the final case, making it a little bit longer, depending on if we absolved them or not. So there was just so many characters, it was very hard to keep up with. the antagonist's motivation. Like, it's very obvious, like, she has a grudge against Sherlock because, in a way, he took away her father, and because her aunt passed away and her mother was no longer around, and she lost her father in prison, she kind of lost all hope in the world. And I feel like kind of revenge is obvious, but using Sherlock's adoptive daughter when like somehow she found out she was Moriarty's daughter, not Sherlock's daughter. That's kind of a concern because how would she know this information? Like, was she working for Moriarty? Like, Moriarty in the elementary series was notorious for reaching out to certain people to offer protection, but also be invited to a network. So was it something like that? Like, we don't really get a clear motivation. It's just a vague one that isn't really backed up with very good evidence. And there's no sequel. Like, we don't get to see the aftermath of what happened between Sherlock and Kate, aside from the conclusion we get to see as they're leaving and rowing away from Madame Destiny. And just kind of a fancy cinematic, not cinematic. I don't know why I want to say it like that. But cinematic scene of just like, you know, the end credits. It would have been nice to have kind of a more concrete, and like I said, this kind of goes back to earlier with the story. Like, it just, the ending was not good. And so for that reason alone, with like the characters of mine, even though they did spend a lot of time developing them, there is a concern of like, you know, just it seemed all over the place with a lot of the characters, in my opinion. So with that, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because they did put some honest effort into it. I just feel like it got so overwhelming that the ending of the game got rushed, and it could have been a lot better. So that is why I gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, on to the controls. I have so much to say about the controls, but I was not able to find a picture of the controls for PlayStation, but it is on PlayStation 4 originally. It is also backwards compatible for Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. So, it is a backwards compatible game, but it is on PC. It is also on Xbox. I don't think it would be easy to play on PC, but if you're a PC player that has played this game on PC, please give me your honest feedback of how difficult it was or easy it was for how to play and being able to play the game, or if you were able to switch the like keys on there or not. On Xbox, it was easy to an extent. One of the things I'll talk about in gameplay is the whole left and right analog sticks being used for eavesdropping. That was tedious. So like just having the controls a little bit was difficult on the 360. I don't know anything about the PlayStation, but if you have used it on the PlayStation and want to add to the review, you definitely comment below on how easy or difficult it was for you with the PlayStation controls. So some of the pros and cons. It's very easy to find in case you're like, oh, what does this control do again? Because some games don't provide that. So I liked that. And the other funny thing is there's like a practice where you can practice the balancing or the circles game with like, you know, trying to keep it in the circle for the left and right analog stick circles. And that's something you can practice on Baker Street. I don't know about the eavesdropping or any of the other stuff that you can practice on Baker Street, but that was one of them, which was made the game really fun to play. I feel like if you needed to just practice that, I wish it was easier with other skills too. So some of the cons. So there's no real tutorial on how to do things like the character profiles or where to go or how to resolve a case or how to even do deductions. It just kind of throws you right into the game. So that was a con of mine because if it's someone who's never played Crimes and Punishments Sherlock or any of the other Sherlock games made by Frogware, it really defeats the immersion or easing a new gamer into the series. So that is kind of just a con for the controls. And it's also very complex. Like I said, the balancing of the analog sticks is not easy. There's other moments where it's just like not really easy to use the controls. So it's a very complex system of controls for the control system of the game. And like I said, they don't have a way of changing it on Xbox, but if it's on PC or PlayStation, let me know. And if you're someone that is not willing to take time to learn a system, I would not recommend playing this because it is very aggravating to learn. Like, I had to walk away and take a break from this game sometimes because it was just so aggravating to learn. And I was like, oh, I want to do a walkthrough of this. I remember playing this and it was fun. And then I remembered, or it can be aggravating to learn. So if you're a person that doesn't like to take the time to learn and just wants to play the game, this game may not be for you because it does take some time learning how to play the game and the controls since there is no like tutorial to explain how to do some of these mini games unless you just want to skip all the mini games and just be kind of seeing a lot more cutscenes and finding clues. So because of that, I honestly like I would have been tempted to go lower, but again, they give you ways to practice the skills at least, and it's also easy to find in case you forget how to use certain abilities. But the controls got a 5 out of 10 for me. Like I said, the controls are very, very difficult. Not very friendly to someone who's new to the game series or new to Frogware games. So that is why I did a 5 out of 10. So gameplay, and I forgot to put the name on there, but the last thing we're gonna talk about, because I'm pretty sure it's the last thing we're gonna talk about, is gameplay. So gameplay, you could kind of see in this image like one of the mini games that I talked about, and like I said, this is a PlayStation controller, so it's different controls. But as you could see with the analog sticks, like I was talking about, they're asking you to keep like the concentration controls aimed to eavesdrop on the conversation, and you have to keep it within those two little circles or the two little circles within that like big circle in the middle. And it's not as easy as it looks. It is quite difficult because you could be looking at the left one and then all of a sudden the right one is out of the circle and then you have to get the right one back into the middle. It's requiring like having your attention on both analog stick circles at the same time, which is really hard and intense. So let's talk about some of that gameplay that you can also check out on the Sherlock Holmes The Devil's Daughter walkthrough that I just recently finished. So some of the pros, like I said, choices. You have the choice of how you do things and getting all the clues rather than just the important clues that will get you the correct deduction. And just exploring and navigating all together. exploring. Like I said, the gameplay allows exploring and stuff. And the other cool thing about it too is like they don't tell you like you have to do it in this chronological order. They can recommend it, but you could do is go for all the clues before you progress. For example, like if you wanted to interrogate Jack the Hammer before doing the exorcism at Jeremiah's place, you could do that. And then once you do the exorcism, then you could do is ask Inspector Lestrade to bring the dart in and question him. So like there are different ways to get all the clues, and there's no like exact XYZ order necessarily to getting all the clues, the cons. So you could basically live in that world um and not do the cases basically. Like the case at hand is the only way you could progress the game. There is no other ways of progressing or taking on many cases that aren't forced upon you, like Mary Sutherland um and whatnot. So it just kind of is sad that, you know, there's no way to like practice your skills more by taking on like side cases. It's just main cases. And the mini cases are very short. Like the Mary Sutherland, you can solve that within like 5 minutes. And I can't remember some of the other ones off the top of my head, but a lot of the mini cases are very, very short. So it's just one of those things that it leaves to be desired. Like if they have mini cases for us, it would have been nice to have like, you know, kind of like not a lot of time put into those cases, but also not making it easy within 5 minutes. And the gameplay was challenging because sometimes when I knew what I needed to do and it was like, okay, I see a guard that's guarding the door, I can't go open the door. And there's a window and, you know, there's a guard there for obvious reason. I couldn't just, you know, scan the room or been like, oh, this would be a good thing to help with my distraction. I literally had to click on the door, and even though it tells you the objectives at hand, it was still very frustrating because there were times where I was like, okay, I did this step correctly. Like the jacket note for Pray Tell with George Hurst's father, or George Hurst, sorry, and doing that at their home with Tom Hurst. And it was giving me the notes, and then I was like, okay, I could go get it out of the jacket. No. Like you literally have to wait. It's like timing and all this other stuff, and it's just so challenging. It doesn't make it really fun to play the game or enjoy the story. And I also think it's kind of sad they allow like ways to skip some of the puzzles because it kind of defeats the purpose of playing the game, because if you take out the puzzles, you're just basically clue searching and enjoying cinematic scenes, which doesn't make the game kind of appealing. So because of that gameplay and experience, I have to do is rate this a 6 out of 10. If they had fixed a lot of those cons, it could have been a little bit higher. So with that said, this is my final evaluation of this game. So 6 out of 10 for story, 8 out of 10 for graphics, 7 out of 10 for music, 7 out of 10 for characters, 5 out of 10 for controls, and 6 out of 10 for gameplay, for a total of 39 out of 60 possible points, because that's how I do it to make the numbers easy on me. And that's about a 65%. So I give it a C. If you want to do like educational grade wise, I give this game a C. Could it be better? Yes. And if they had made more at various points, like, you know, for the thriller series. Like I said, there is Crimes and Punishments, and I'm definitely gonna go check that out eventually. But overall, it just really, oop, I didn't want to do that. It just really is aggravating that they did not give this game much more mystery. It could have been better, but like I said, there are other games, and you know, maybe those games are better, but this one was very lackluster on the mystery thriller. So again, would I recommend it to anybody? I would say if you're an experienced gamer who does not mind learning new controls, does not mind, you know, struggling a lot in the game and using a guide, I would recommend it. Otherwise, I don't know if I would full heartedly recommend this to a new player, or someone that's new to the series. So, with that said, I can't wait to see you guys in the next walkthrough videos, wherever that may be, and hopefully catch you soon.